They're separating them. Phil looks like he's chomping at the bit to get these comparisons in. Now we're going to find out. This is clearly for the Mr. Olympia.
Quarter turn to the right.
Absolutely. Both guys look supremely confident. They know they're on. They both want it bad.
I think as a judge, when you look at these quarter turn compulsories, you would have to give this aspect of the compulsory round to Phil Heath. Standing semi-relaxed, I think he's got advantages over Kai
turn to the right.
in each of these positions. It's closest from the back.
Okay, now, do me a favor. Take a step apart from each other.
You
There's
see a
plenty of
significant
room.
difference in their physiques. When they pose, could
Got
be
to
another
stay on the
story.
same side. Come on, a little bit of room between you. Come on, Phil, take one. Yep, thank you. Okay, now front.
Absolutely, and we saw a little bit of gamesmanship from Phil and Kai at the pre-judging, and that was fun. You know, last year.
Here we go, folks. Who's winning the pose?
Jay
Come on now,
and
front
Phil,
double bicep.
and that's always good for bodybuilding.
And relax. Relax.
I do think that front double bi
Front,
is one pose
lat
where Phil
spread.
definitively wins. It's just not a good pose for Kai. He has short biceps, and his stomach distends a little bit.
Okay, you can't make
Phil
this
tends
difficult
to
for me.
dominate
It's my
in that
first
pose.
time calling.
Yeah, the other
this
thing that's interesting is
front,
that
lat
Kai looks
spread.
so conditioned by himself. From the front, standing next to Phil, Phil looks like the more conditioned
both front,
athlete to
lat
me.
spread.
From the back, Kai is super conditioned, but when you look at the striations and the
And
separation
relax.
that Phil
Either
has,
side for
you can
side
see,
chest.
in my opinion, from the front, he looks to be more conditioned.
And relax.
Yeah,
Relax,
anytime he
face the
flexes
rear.
those arms like that, there's just not anybody in the world who can hit that side pose with his biceps and triceps
Back
and
double
look like
bicep.
that. Now, from the back, this is where Kai has a chance to make up
If
some ground.
Olympias are one
But
from the
Phil
back,
is no
who's
slouch
winning
back
this
here
one?
either. And, you know, Kai has some poses where he's overwhelming, but Phil looks good in every pose.
Yeah, I think the side chest is a shot that Kai does well against Phil in. From the rear double bi, again, very close. I mean, you know, we're splitting hairs between
And
apples and
relax.
oranges. I think
Back,
Phil's
flat
back
spread.
looks more dense down the middle. Kai's looks more separated and striated. But I said all along, I think the rear double bi and the side chest are the two shots where Kai has a slight, and I mean slight, advantage over Phil. In the rest of the poses, I give Phil a slight and in some cases more significant advantage
And
over
relax.
Kai,
Either
like this
side
rear lat spread
for
where you
side
see the
tricep.
density of Heath's back, which was always thought to be the weak point that would hold him back, and he's been so diligent in turning it into a strong point.
Yeah, it's interesting that rear lat spread. Kai has
And
huge
relax.
sweeping lats,
Face
but not
forward.
quite that detail in the middle that Phil does.
Okay, face forward, sorry. Okay, now.
And again, both guys obviously
overhead
supremely
abdominals.
confident in what they're bringing to the stage tonight, and that just makes it more fun for everybody else.
And relax. Your favorite, most muscular.
The big crowd pleaser coming up, and I think this is a shot where it's hard for anybody to hang with Phil.
Yeah, you look at Phil Heath in these poses, it's the
And
roundness.
relax.
You look at him
And
there,
relax.
and you know the interesting
Okay, I
thing.
don't
This is
think
why
you're
we
gonna
say
get
you
two
have to
better
put two guys next to one
competitors.
another.
Thank you
Because
very much. You
when
can
I
take a
saw
step
Kai
back
do
to
his
either
free
side.
posing routine, and he was by himself, I would have said, "Wow, he's going to be a lot closer to Phil." Once they got next to one another, I still think Phil wins this contest and walks away with his second Olympia. And I think he did it pretty convincingly in most of those comparisons.
Sean Roden.
Yeah.
As much time working on their mandatories and holding their mandatories as they do doing cardio,
Making you work
because they
tonight.
know how tough it is up there, and it also tends to harden up the physique.
Okay.
And lo and behold,
Front double
aren't
bicep.
these two getting familiar with one another? Phil Heath and Kai Green back center stage, and Chris will find out if Kai has trouble getting through these comparisons.
I mean, if Chris is right about Phil's strategy, this is going to play right into it. And, I mean, when Kai came out for his routine, I thought he had maybe gained some ground on Phil, but as they went through the the comparisons, I thought Phil
And
actually
relax.
was starting to
Face the rear.
separate himself
Back
a little
double
bit. He
bicep.
looked very good in the back poses.
Chris, if you were going to pick one area that you think Phil is most dominant over Kai, and one where Kai is beating Phil, what comes to mind?
And relax.
What comes to mind
Face
straight
forward.
away is in the lat pose. The real lat pose, Heath definitely has a lot of that
Your favorite,
thickness
most
still going on
muscular.
there, where the width does flare out with Kai, and it seems to lose it. But you can see he's really full throughout the chest now, Phil, and you know that
And
most muscular
relax.
right there.
Thank you
It just
very
knocks it out the
much.
park. But you know,
This
with
concludes our
Kai,
confirmation
yes,
round.
he did flatten out a little bit. He is tired, but
All
he's
right, I'm gonna begin
so
round
composed.
19
He's a
of our
great showman
Olympians.
up there and a true
That
professional.
concludes the confirmation
I think
round
the
of
more they
scoring.
pose, the more
Ladies and
Phil
gentlemen,
becomes
back
more obvious.
just
I mean,
a little
the
while.
thing that jumps out at
We
me
break
is
it
that
down to our
roundness
top
and
10.
fullness. And Kai does look like physique-wise, to your point backstage, where physically he's faded a little bit. And I think